Hey, everybody, and welcome to another deep dive.
It's great to be here.
Today, we're going to be taking a look at the name Nancy.
Ooh, fun.
Yeah. We've got articles. We've got historical data on baby names.
Interesting.
We've even got a little bit of numerology thrown in.
Oh, cool.
So whether you're expecting or you just love names, or maybe you're a Nancy yourself,
Yeah.
buckle up.
Get ready.
We're going to uncover a really interesting story behind this name.
Can't wait.
Did you know that Nancy wasn't always a standalone name?
Mm-hmm.
And how did one name get linked to both, sweet grandmas and daring detectives?
That's a good question.
We're going to find out.
Let's do it.
So to get us started, I think the first thing we need to understand is where the name Nancy actually came from.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really interesting how Nancy evolved,
Okay.
It actually started as a nickname.
Oh, really?
Way, way back, folks would shorten the name Anne or Anne.
Okay.
Which means Grace or favored to Nan.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, that became Nancy.
Huh. So it's almost like a nickname that became so popular that it earned its own spot on the birth certificate.
Exactly.
Like how Jack came from John.
Exactly.
Okay.
And what's fascinating is that even though it is, a nickname turned name, Nancy didn't really hit peak popularity until the 18th century.
Wow.
And then had another surge in the mid-20th century.
Well,
Yeah, so there's a whole wave of what you might call like classic Nancys out there.
Oh, I bet everyone listening has a mental picture of what a classic Nancy looks like.
I bet they do.
Do you?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But does that match up with the name's meaning and history?
Well, there's definitely that connection to the grace aspect we talked about,
Right.
Dependable, nurturing someone you can always count on.
Yeah, there's a real warmth to it.
Yeah.
But I also get this sense of don't mess with me hiding under the surface.
Absolutely. They can be sweet, but they're no pushover.
But it's important to remember, this is all just like broad strokes,
Right.
Name analysis can be fun,
Yeah.
but it's not like hard science.
It's more about exploring possibilities than predicting someone's personality.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
But speaking of those deeper meanings, there's also that connection to St. Anne.
That's right. In Christian tradition, St. Anne is the mother of Mary.
Okay.
She's often seen as a symbol of motherhood and grace.
Okay.
So that adds another layer to the name, especially in cultures where, those beliefs are strong.
It's like this hidden depth.
Totally.
So Nancy has this idea of grace built in both as a personality trait
Right.
and a connection to something bigger.
Exactly.
But Nancy isn't just an English-speaking thing, right?
Definitely not. In French, it's pretty much the same.
Okay.
But things get a little more interesting when you look at other languages.
Okay.
So in Russian, for instance, Nancy becomes Nadezhda,
Wow.
which means hope.
So even with a totally different sound, the core idea of grace or goodness or something positive is still there.
Often, yeah. It's like this universal thread
Yeah.
connecting all these different versions.
Now, you mentioned something before about numerology and color associations.
I did.
Lay it on me.
All right, so I know this might sound a little mystical,
Okay.
but bear with me.
I'm here for it.
Okay, so in numerology, Nancy is linked to the number 7.
Ooh, 7.
And just to really simplify it, numerology assigns numbers to letters
Okay.
and then calculates a single-digit number that represents different aspects of a person.
Okay.
And for Nancy, that number is 7,
Interesting.
which is all about introspection, deep thinking, and a quest for truth.
So Nancy isn't just about outward grace and kindness. It's got this intellectual truth-seeking side too.
Totally. Like they might be the quiet observer,
Right.
but they're piecing things together in their head.
Yeah, they're watching.
Yeah.
They're observing.
Yeah.
They're learning.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful complement to that idea of grace.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Yeah.
a balance between the heart and the mind.
Right.
And speaking of balance, the color blue is often associated with the name Nancy.
Oh, that makes sense. Blue represents trust, wisdom, stability.
Mm-hmm.
It really is a perfect visual for those classic Nancy qualities.
Right.
But here's where things get really interesting. Nancy Drew.
Oh, yeah.
Because she kind of throws a wrench into that whole sweet and gentle image, doesn't she?
She does. And that's what makes names so cool, right?
Yeah.
They can have all these different facets.
Right.
So, Nancy Drew, with her detective work,
Yes.
it brings in elements of strength and resilience
Yes.
and a little bit of risk-taking.
Yeah.
She's not just baking cookies.
No.
She's solving mysteries.
Right.
She's facing danger head on.
Exactly.
It's like she embodies the more adventurous side of Nancy.
Totally.
But did her popularity actually change how people saw the name?
Well, it's hard to say for sure.
Yeah.
But her character definitely added a new dimension to Nancy. You know?
She's been a cultural icon for generations.
Yeah.
And that undoubtedly influences how we see the name.
So she kind of gave permission for Nancys everywhere to embrace their inner sleuth.
Exactly.
And go after what they want. But it's not just Nancy Drew.
No.
There are other Nancys out there in literature.
Oh, yeah.
That shape how we see the name.
Totally. And one that comes to mind is Nancy from Charles Dickens' Oliver Twist.
Okay.
Now, her story is a bit more tragic.
Okay.
But she still shows remarkable qualities like loyalty and bravery.
And she endures so much hardship. It adds another layer to how we perceive the name, doesn't it?
It does.
Even when things are tough, a Nancy can hold on to her values and find that inner strength.
Exactly. And it's not just about being agreeable and nurturing.
Yeah.
It's about having that grit to overcome obstacles.
Right.
And that definitely contributes to our perception of the name.
So Nancy isn't necessarily about being a pushover.
Right.
It's more about choosing your battles wisely and staying true to yourself.
Exactly. And that kind of strength and resilience is something that transcends time and cultures.
Right.
It's a quality that's valuable no matter who you are or where you come from.
So for anyone out there who's a Nancy or thinking about using the name,
right,
remember, you're inheriting a legacy of grace, kindness, and strength.
Absolutely.
But there's one more thing I'd love to hear your take on.
I'm all ears.
We've talked about Nancys from the past, fictional Nancys, even the numerology and colors. But what about the future?
Ooh.
What does a modern day Nancy look like to you?
That's a good one. What do you think?
I'm picturing someone who combines the best of everything we've talked about.
Yep.
Kind and compassionate, but also fiercely independent and capable.
Yeah.
Someone who's not afraid to challenge expectations.
I love that. Someone who takes that legacy of grace and strength and makes it their own.
Exactly. Someone who embraces the name's history, but adds their own unique spark to it.
Someone who shows the world that Nancy isn't just a name from the past. Right? It's a name for the future.
Beautifully said. Now, for everyone listening, let's bring this back to you.
Okay.
Knowing what we now know about Nancy, how does the name strike you?
Yeah.
Would you use it? And what kind of person do you imagine a modern-day Nancy to be? Hold on to those thoughts.
Yeah.
We'll pick up right here in part 2.
Can't wait. It's amazing how much meaning can be packed into a single name, isn't it?
I know, right? And we've only just scratched the surface.
We have.
But before we totally wrap up our Nancy deep dive, there's one more thing I kind of want to explore.
Right.
And that's how Nancy shows up in, like, books and movies.
Ooh, fun.
Because some names, like, become iconic because of the characters who have them.
Right.
And Nancy Drew immediately comes to mind.
Oh, the OG girl detective.
Right. For a lot of people, she's like the poster child for the name.
Absolutely.
But do you think that her character traits,
yeah,
like her cleverness and her resourcefulness and her bravery, have they actually shaped how people view the name?
Oh, absolutely. I think she reinforces that hidden strength we were talking about.
Yeah.
It's not like waiting around for someone to solve her problems.
Right.
She's out there solving mysteries, taking charge, and turning expectations upside down.
Right.
Like she embodies that bolder, more adventurous side of Nancy.
Exactly. And her popularity has lasted for generations. It's pretty amazing.
It is. She's a cultural icon.
Right.
And that inevitably colors how we see the name.
It's like she gave permission for Nancys everywhere to embrace their inner detective.
Totally.
And go after what they want.
Right.
But it's not just Nancy Drew.
Oh, no.
There are other Nancys in literature that add to the name's image.
Absolutely. And one that comes to mind is Nancy from Charles Dickens' Oliver Twist.
Okay, yeah.
Now, her story is a little bit more tragic.
Okay.
But she still shows, like, really remarkable qualities, like loyalty and bravery.
Yeah. And she's so resilient.
Yeah.
In the face of some really tough situations.
Good.
So it adds another layer to how we think about the name, doesn't it?
It does. Like, even when life throws curveballs, a Nancy can hold on to her values and find that inner strength.
So it's not just about being, you know, sweet and kind.
Right.
It's about having the strength to overcome obstacles, too.
Exactly. And that ability to navigate challenges with grace and determination is like a powerful theme that emerges when we look at the big picture of Nancy.
Maybe Nancy is less about being a pushover
and
more about choosing your battles wisely and staying true to yourself.
Exactly. And that message of strength and resilience is something that speaks to people across generations and cultures.
Right.
It's a quality that's always valuable no matter who you are or where you come from.
So to all the Nancys out there, or anyone thinking about using the name, remember, you're not just getting a name.
No.
You're inheriting a legacy of grace, kindness, and inner strength.
And you have the power to shape that legacy. Embrace the qualities that resonate with you and make the name your own.
Beautifully said. Okay, so that kind of brings us to the end of our deep dive into Nancy. But before we officially say goodbye, I want to leave you with one last thought to ponder.
I love a good, thought-provoking question.
We've talked about historical Nancys and fictional Nancys.
Yeah.
The numerology, the colors, the whole shebang. But what about the future? What does a modern-day Nancy look like to you?
That's a really good one.
Yeah.
What do you picture?
I'm picturing someone who embodies all the best things we've talked about. Someone who is kind and compassionate.
Yes.
But also fiercely independent and capable.
I like that.
Someone who's not afraid to break the mold and redefine what it means to be a Nancy in today's world.
I love that. Someone who carries that legacy of grace and strength. But also brings their own unique spark to it.
Right. It makes me excited to see what the future holds for the name Nancy.
And who knows, maybe that future Nancy is listening to us right now.
I hope so. If that's you, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
What does being a Nancy mean to you in this day and age? Head over to our social media and share your thoughts.
We love hearing from you.
Names are so cool because they're not static.
They're not.
They evolve with us.
They do.
Reflecting the changing times and the individuals who carry them.
It's true.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Nancy, remember, it's not just a name on paper or a sound we make.
Right.
It's a living, breathing idea that continues to shape and be shaped by the world around it.
Maybe our conversation has sparked something in you.
Yeah.
Perhaps you'll notice the Nancys in your life a bit differently. Appreciating those layers of meaning they carry.
Or maybe it'll inspire you to learn more about your own name or the names of your loved ones.
It could.
After all, every name has a story.
They do.
Just waiting to be uncovered.
So true.
Yeah.
And those stories connect us to history and culture and the shared human experience.
Yeah.
So keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep into this amazing world of names.
Beautifully said. And that's a wrap on our deep dive into Nancy. We hope you enjoyed the journey. Until next time, happy exploring.
You know, it's really amazing.
What's that?
How names can be like these little windows into different cultures and times.
Yeah. Like what we were talking about with Nadezhda in Russian.
Yeah.
It's so cool how the same name can sound completely different.
Right.
But still carry that same core idea, like hope or grace.
Exactly. And it makes you think about all the other Nancys out there, right?
Yeah.
Like, how is the name interpreted in different languages?
Right, in different cultures.
I was reading about how in some African cultures, names are actually chosen.
Oh, wow.
Based on, like, the circumstances surrounding the child's birth.
Really?
Or even the day of the week they were born.
Wow.
Like, imagine how that would influence the meaning of a name.
That's fascinating. So the name is, like, tied to your destiny.
Yeah, almost.
Yeah.
It makes you appreciate all the thought that goes into naming a child.
It really does.
In different parts of the world.
So we've been focusing a lot on the positive aspects of Nancy.
Yeah.
The grace, the strength, the intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
But are there any, like, downsides, challenges that might come with the name?
That's a really good question. And it's important to remember that no name is inherently good or bad.
Right.
It's all about how the individual embodies the name.
Right.
But I suppose with a classic name like Nancy,
yeah,
there could be this pressure to live up to certain expectations.
Like if you're a Nancy, but you're more of a free spirit.
Yeah. Or an artistic type.
Yeah.
You might feel a little stifled.
By that traditional image.
Exactly. But on the flip side,
yeah,
that could also be a source of strength, you know?
Okay.
To challenge those expectations and show the world that Nancy can be just as diverse as any other name.
Yeah, it comes back to that idea of personal agency.
It does.
That we choose to define ourselves.
Absolutely.
No matter what name we're given.
I love that. It's such a great point, and I think it applies to everyone.
Right.
Whether you're a Nancy or a Jake or Maria,
yeah,
we all have the power to shape our own identities.
This has been so interesting.
It has.
Learning all about Nancy.
I know. We've uncovered so much history and cultural significance.
And if you're still thinking about those questions we left you with.
Yeah.
about what a modern-day Nancy looks like or what your own name means to you.
Yeah.
Keep exploring those thoughts.
Because names are more than just labels.
Yeah.
There's stories waiting to be told.
And on that note, we'll wrap up our deep dive into the name Nancy.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for joining us on this journey. Until next time, keep diving deep and discovering all the hidden stories that are out there in the world.